Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, we're going to be learning 3 walking bass lines for blues ukulele. So the first thing that we want to talk about is what is a walking bass line? Well, it's really 2 things in one, so let's start with just bass line. Well, bass line is defined as the lowest in pitch sequence of notes that's being played in a musical performance. Now that's a really fancy way to say that it's the musical phrase that the bass player plays. So it's really as simple as that. Now, how does walking come into factor with the bass line? Well, sometimes you're going to be playing a bass line that goes ascending in pitch, for example, bum 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 bum, while other times you're going to go descending, da 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 dum. Right? And when we do that, we get a bass line that has momentum, that has movement, that sounds lively and makes this type of playing quite playful. Now, what's great about this lesson is that we have 3 bass lines and they're leveled. So we have a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced level. Now, the beginner bass line is going to be just the bass line by itself. And the intermediate level is going to add chords into the mix. So it starts to sound like a one-man band or like a chord melody. And then the advanced level, we're going to jazzify it by playing a jazz, blues, walking bass line. And it's just super duper fun. Now, as far as this lesson is concerned, in this video, we're going to be learning the first 2, the beginner and the intermediate walking bass line. If you want to learn the advanced bass line, we're going to be teaching that in the part 2 lesson. So you can click this link or go to the site rockclass101.com and do a search for EP012. That's the lesson number for this lesson. Now, on that page will also be the tabs that you can print out to follow along with as a PDF format, as well as the on-screen tab viewer. Now, this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a really great asset for learning this song that much easier. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and jump into learning this tune. There's a few things that we do need to touch on before we actually start playing it. The first thing is that, yes, it is a low G ukulele piece. So you 100% for this lesson need a low G. It's not going to work on a high G. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the blues. So all 3 of these bass lines are played out of the key of G, and they all use the standard 12-bar blues form. But before we talk about the form, let's talk about blues in general. Now blues is a 3-chord progression. It's just in its standard, most basic form, it's always 3 chords, and that in the key of G means that you're playing the 1 chord, which we can think of, let's count it up. The 1 chord is G7, then you go to the 4 chord, which is G, A, B, C, C7, and then we also have one last final chord, and I'm going to play the Hawaiian D7 right there, G, A, B, C, D, right? The 5 chords. So you literally have a chord progression that goes 1 to 4, which is C7, and then D7 is the 5. So you have a 1, 4, 5 chord progression. Now, that 1, 4, 5 doesn't go 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, right? It goes in a specific order, and I'll put the order up right here. So you can see that bars 1 through 4 is going to be the 1 chord, which is G7. Bar 5 and 6 is going to be the 4 chord, which is C7. Bar 7 and 8 takes us back to the 1 chord, which is G7. Then 9 into 10, that's our turnaround. We're going to go D7 into C7, and then 11 and 12 takes us back to G7, the 1 chord. So I know I'm rushing through all this, but this lesson is not intended to be an intro to playing blues. This is for those of you who've been playing the basics of blues for a little bit and are looking to jazz it up a little bit with the bass line added. Now, if you're new to understanding the 12-bar blues form, I would hit pause on this lesson and read through our article on understanding the 12-bar blues, because it's going to explain it in great detail. Now, the first 2 bass lines, beginner and intermediate, are going to follow this 12-bar form to a T. When we get into the advanced level, we're going to jazz it up and switch up that chord progression just a little bit. But we'll talk about that when we get into the part 2 lesson. So as far as our right hand picking is concerned, there's a few things that you can do. The first one, and I'll play through this little opening phrase. You can see that I'm using a 3-finger approach, but it's very strategic in how it's utilized. So everything on string 4 will be played with the thumb, but when we play the melody line that walks up and down on string 3, I'm going to be alternate picking, going second, first, second, first, second, first, and so forth, right? So just second, first, second, first, second, first. So this is called piccato picking, and if you're new to it, you can just take the first string open and just practice. Go second, first, second, first, second, first, and continue on. We did break down piccato picking technique and the mechanics behind it in much greater detail in our flamenco lesson, which I'll put the spelling up here. It's called La Gitanita, so I'll put the link in the description box below. So if this is a new technique for you, definitely go check it out. But if you've watched any bass player ever play, you'll notice that that is the technique that they use like 99% of the time. So we're kind of copying in that sense as well. But that basically covers the bass movement. Now sometimes you're going to encounter linear sequences where you're just walking straight down like string 3, string 2, string 1, and you can revert to standard finger picking approaches where you can use a 3-finger approach. For example, thumb would play everything on string 4 and string 3, index would play string 2, middle would play string 1. Right, so those are the main 2 approaches that I'm using throughout this entire piece as it relates to the right hand. So that's everything that I wanted to cover, so let's go ahead and jump into actually learning how to play it. And to do so, I'm going to go ahead and play just the first part of the beginner bass line, and then we'll break it down and learn it. So here's what the first part sounds like. Okay, now this bass line is basically playing out of an arpeggio of the G7. So we're literally playing 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 1. Right, if you think of that chord broken into single notes, that's what we get. 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 1. In other words, G, B, D, F, G. But if you listen to it played as an arpeggio, it really sounds like a musical exercise instead of what we're actually playing, which adds one extra note outside of the arpeggio. This note right here. And when you do that, it sounds ever so much more musical, which is super duper awesome. Now, I just blazed through all of that arpeggios and scale talk and chord talk, so if you're completely lost in what I'm talking about and you want to dive deeper into the music theory side of things, do check out our music theory course, which is really cool because it relates music theory, or it ties music theory into applying it. So you don't just learn theory, but you learn how to apply it into your playing. Anyways, so to start us off, this entire beginner level piece is using all quarter notes. So rhythmically, it's super easy. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So there's the first bar. So we're going to start with the open G. Remember, we're going to use our thumb. And then for everything on string 3, we're going to be using the piccato picking, but keep that in mind for a second. So we're going to start with the open G, then take that ring finger, play the 4th fret on string 4. Then we get to string 3, and we're going to play 2nd and 4th. So we have O, 4, 2nd, 4. So remember, middle, index. Lead with the middle, index for the piccato picking. So thumb, thumb, 2nd finger, 1st finger, calling out the right hand. Open, 4, 2nd, 4. So let's try that, just bar 1 together, you and me. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Bar 2, start where you left off, which is the ring finger on 4 on string 3. We're going to slide into 5. So keep pressure held down, pick the note and slide into 5, then go back to 4, then to 2, and then string 4, fret 4. So you have slide 4, 2, 4 on 4. Remember, piccato picking. So the thing that you need to be thinking about is where you're left off in the sequence of right hand. So you have thumb, thumb, second, first, second, thumb. Okay? So remember, just keep alternating to increase our efficiency of our right hand. So again, just the second bar by itself, we have slide, 4, 2, 4 on 4. So let's try just that one by itself. 3, 4, slide. Nice. And if we try 1 into 2 together, that's what gives us that musical phrase, that bluesy phrase. Okay, so let's just try that together slow. 3, 4. And as you're playing through this, really do pay attention to keeping the sustain. You want every note to sustain beautifully into the next one. So you don't want any choppiness, no staccato, none of that. You just want bum, 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 that beautiful up and down sustain. Now, that's the first 2 bars. So if we remember the 12-bar blues form, we know that bars 1 through 4 play over the 1 chord, over the G7. So literally for bar 3 and 4, you're going to repeat the exact same 2-bar phrase. So let's try that. Let's try 4 bars, bars 1 through 4, and it's just that same phrase that we just played 2 times in a row. So here we go. 3, 4. Nice. Now going into the next one, we're going to the 4 chord, C7, and it's going to be playing off of string 3 and 2, but watch the right hand. It's the exact same thing, right? So thumb plays string 3, and then you piccato pick on string 2. So the right hand just moved down 1 string. So to play the C7 phrase, we're going to start on the open C, use the middle finger to play 4 on string 3, and then play with the index finger on 3 on string 2, and then ring finger plays 5 on string 2. So that's our first set of 4 notes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is bar 5. So let's see if we can try that together. 3, 4. Nice. Now from here, we're going to do the same little slide into the next note. So we're going to pick the 5th fret, slide into the 6th fret, then just go back down, play 5, play 3, and then end on 4 on string 3. So you have slide, 5, 3, and then 4. Okay, so let's try just that measure by itself, measure 6. 3, 4, slide, 5, 3, 4. Awesome. If we put it together, it starts to make sense. So when you're practicing this, practice 2-bar phrase at a time, right? 1 bar at a time sounds incomplete, so to speak. So bar 5 and 6 together. All right, let's give that one a shot. 3, 4. Nice. Now, if we take a look for a second at where we're at in the form, we just finished bar 5 and 6. We have to remember that 7 and 8 takes us back to the 1 chord. So we're literally just going to play the G phrase 1 time for that next 2 bars. So let's do this. Let's just recap from the beginning. So we have 2 times for G, 1 time for C, 1 time for G. And if we count the bars, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so let's try that. We'll go slow. We'll go 1 through 8, but slow. So starting on G, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Second bar. third bar. 4, switch to C. 6, back to G. 7, 8. Nice. So now we're on our little turnaround. We're going to go 5 to 4. So we have the D7 to C7. But we're going to be playing a little bit of a different phrase. We're going to do that linear movement that I talked about, where we're just going string 3 to string 1. So just walking down 3, 2, 1. So for D7 sounds like this. And then C7 sounds like this. Okay, so let's break down what's happening. So for this D7, we have a couple fingerings that we can use. We can use the first finger for the second fret of string 3, put the middle finger underneath that, and then you're going to play the open A, and then put the ring finger underneath that and play the second fret. So you can see that eventually I end up with 2, 2, 2, right? So I have second on string 3, second on string 2, open A, and then second on string 1. Remember, all quarter notes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can use that fingering, or you could use second, third, open, pinky, right? So you can use that one. Either one works, whatever is most comfortable for you, although I think most people will probably choose this one. So let's try just that bar by itself, not too hard. So we have 3, 4. Nice. Now if we go into the next one, C7, we have a little bit of an awkward chord shape. So if we look at the movement, we're going to be adding one finger at a time. So we don't have to do this entire chord shape from the get-go. We're going to be adding one finger at a time as the music calls for it, and that's going to help form the chord slowly over time and make it much easier for our left hand. So the C7 sounds like this. Okay, you can see I added one finger at a time. So open C, then use the ring finger for the 4th fret of string 3, the middle finger for the 3rd fret of string 2, and the index goes on the 1st fret of string 1. So I have open C, 4 on string 3 with ring, 3 on string 2 with middle, 1st fret with the index, string 1. Stack the chord. Don't try to go everything from the get-go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try that bar together. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I cycle through 9 into 10, it sounds like this. Okay, let's you and I try. 3, 4. Okay, so not super duper hard. And remember, linear picking. So anything that's string 3 is thumb, index would play string 2, middle plays string 1. So that takes us to our ending phrase, which is bar 11 and 12. It takes us back to the 1 chord, which is G7. And those 2 bars are going to sound like this. So nice, classic, kind of cliche way to end this tune. So it starts with the open G, then the 4th fret of string 4, then index plays 2nd fret of string 3, and then we have the open E. So that's the first bar. Okay, so again, this is a linear movement, so we can play thumb, thumb, first finger, second finger. We can use that same 3-finger approach, and that'll give us a nice right hand movement for this part. So open 4th, 2nd fret, open E. Then to finish this up, we're just going to walk up on the E string. 1st, 2nd, 3rd. So together you have O, 4, 2, O, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and this last one is a half note. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Done. Okay, let's try those 2 together. So here we go. 3, 4. Nice. If we backtrack, let's try 9 to 12. 3, 4. Cool. And if we cycle through everything, this is what we get. 1, 2, 3, 4. So really, really fun intro to playing a walking bass line, and very, very beginner friendly. Now, as we go into the next level, this intermediate level, we're going to be adding chords to the mix. And when we add chords to the mix, they're going to fall onto the end of beat 1, which brings up another good point. This intermediate level bass line takes us from playing quarter notes to eighth notes, but the eighth notes have a swung rhythmic fill. So if you're new to the difference between playing straight versus swung eighth notes, then I would highly encourage you to hit pause on this lesson and check out this lesson. I think I have enough cards. If not, I'll put it as well in the description box. Swung versus straight rhythm. And there's a really, really big difference in the rhythmic fill. So you want to make sure that you have that down before you move into this lesson. So let me play it for you, and I want you to just listen to those two aspects, that it has that swung eighth note fill, everything is eighth notes, and that it also has the chord hit on the end of one. So you'll hear on the end of one for every measure will be the little chord pluck. And I also want you to listen to that chord pluck has a bit of a staccato-y feel, so it's not sustaining, but it has a little bit of a staccato type of feel to it. So here's what it sounds like. Right, so you can hear the little bop of the chord. So really, really cool feel. And this intermediate level kind of takes us into that one-man band chord melody type of sound. So a really nice step up from the beginner level. So let's go ahead and jump right into learning what's happening. So the first part, if I play just bar 1, you'll see that it's based out of that stock G chord, right? So nothing crazy is happening here, although there is a little bit of a tricky element because we're going to be using this finger that tends to get ignored by a lot of us, the pinky finger. So watch the pinky finger, and I'll play just bar 1 nice and slow. Okay, so let's break that down. First thing, start with the stock G, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be playing the open G, and then we're going to pluck the bottom. So for plucking, I'm going to be using the middle and the ring finger to pluck strings 1 and 2. You can use first and second if that's more comfortable. Either one works. But I'm going to use middle and ring to pluck that. So I have G, then pluck. And the big thing here is that we don't want it to sustain. We want it to have a little bit of that pop, that little staccato. Right, so there's 2 ways that we can accomplish that. Number 1, anytime we play basic staccato is to lift pressure up. So you see this first string. If I play the 5th fret of the 1st string, if I play that note, I'm just going to lift pressure up. And when I lift pressure up, it's the same thing. I'm still touching the string. It's the same thing that happens when you do a muted strum, right? You barely touch the strings, and that cuts the notes out. So you don't want to lift your finger all the way up. You just want to lift it up, but still touch the string, same way you would if you did a muted strum. And that's one way to cut it. Another way with this is that we have to use the pinky to grab the next set of notes. So you can see when I move my finger up with the pinky, I'm doing essentially what the muted strum does with the left hand. I'm touching the rest of the strings, and that helps to mute that chord pop. So 2 things come into play for that. So again, go ahead and make the basic G, hit the open G, and then we're going to pluck the bottom half, and then with your pinky finger, you're going to play the 4th fret of string 4 twice. Now remember, keep this rhythm with that swung fill. Okay, and it's cool if you lift up off the chord and your fingers look like mine, because right after you play that 4th fret on string 4, you're going to lift the rest of those up, and you're going to play where your index finger is. So watch the index finger. It stays in position, the 2nd fret of string 3. Stays in position, ready to go into playing that note, because it comes up right after. Okay, so we have open, pluck, 4, 4, 2, 2. Okay, then I want you to use the middle finger for the 4th fret of string 4. And and you're going to hit that one twice. Now as far as right hand, you can see thumb, pluck, thumb, thumb, back to piccato. Right? So we're using the same approach that we did for the beginner bass line, where it's thumb played string 4 and piccato on string 3. So nothing really changes with that right hand technique. So let's see if we can try this one together. Okay, so sounds and looks like that. 3 and 4 and. Okay, now with the middle finger, I wanted you to use this finger because you're going to lead with it. You're going to move up and we're going to be playing a higher voicing of G. So I'll put up the chord right here, but you can see that we have open G, the 7th fret of string 3 with middle, ring finger is underneath that, 7 on string 2, index is 5 on string 1. So that's the higher voicing of G we're playing. So we're literally bouncing between those two voicings. Okay, so another thing you can do is just hit pause and you can practice just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And you can just bounce between those two to get the muscle memory down. But the other thing that you want to practice is leading with the middle finger, because you can see as I go up, the big thing that's important with the start of bar 2 is that I go up and play beat 1 with the middle finger. And just as we talked before, we don't have to make the full chord shape from the get-go. We add the next 2 fingers for that higher voicing of G on the end of 1. Because remember, every chord pluck is on the end of 1 for this bass line. And 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and, right? So we don't have to add those fingers on beat 1. We add them on the end of 1. So bar 2, you're going to slide up from the 4th to the 7th fret. So you're going to play that note, and then you're going to add the 2 fingers underneath it, 7 and 5, and you're going to pluck 1 and 2 again. After that, you're going to move back down with the middle finger, and you're going to play the 4th fret. Okay, so if we kind of think of this as going from the end of bar 1 into 2, it's a really good place to practice this. So for example, starting on beat 4 of bar 1, we had 4 and slide up to 7, 1, pluck the chord, and go back to 4 for 2 end. So you have 4 and 1 and 2 and. So that's probably a big transition spot that I would practice. But anyways, that's food for thought once you get this one down. So backtracking, beginning of bar 2. So we have 3, pluck the chord, then back to 4, and then with the index finger, back to 2, and then we're going to play the 4th fret of string 4, and then 2 again on string 3. So most of these melody notes fall onto string 3. We have 7, pluck, 4, 4, 2, 2, 4 on string 4, and then back to 2. 7, pluck, 4, 4, 2, 2, 4, 2. Okay, so that's bar 2 by itself. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and same right hand approach, piccato on string 3, thumb for string 4. So let's try this. Let's try starting just on beat 1 for bar number 2. We have 3 and 4 and. Okay, but again, if we backtrack, you really want to practice that transition that I talked about before. So you may want to just start like we did on beat 4 for bar 1. Right? Once you get comfortable with that, then you can try bar 1 into bar 2. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. 3 and 4 and. Nice. Now, here's the good thing. Remember that that 12-bar form has us playing G for bar 1 and 2, but also for bar 3 and 4. So bar 3 and 4 is just going to play the exact same thing again. So let's go ahead and move on to the 5th and the 6th bar, which plays out of the C chord. So that's going to sound like this. Okay, so let's break down just the first one, so bar 5. And we're going to play the open C, and we're going to be laying flat with a partial bar chord for this one. So the chord that we're playing out of is this lower voicing of a C chord that's going to go to a higher voicing of the G shape, right? So we know the higher voicing chord looks exactly like a G, but when we move it up the neck, it becomes a different chord. It becomes a C chord that's higher pitched. And what's interesting about this stuff, if you've ever studied the caged method, and I'll put the link in the description box below, it teaches you how to take these basic chord shapes, move them up the neck till they become other chords, just like in this case, we took the G and we moved it up the neck until it became a C chord. And for example, if you're ever playing in an ensemble, if you're playing with one other person or 10 other people at a uke jam, and you're playing a song and everyone's playing a C here, you can add to the music and be different. You can create a harmony by playing the higher voice C. So check out the caged method if you want to learn how to take these basic chord shapes that we've played a million times, move them up the neck till they become other chords. Super valuable knowledge to learn. Now, backtracking onto track with learning the C. So, play the open C. I want you to go ahead and just lay flat on the first and second string, the third fret with the index. We're going to pluck that. So remember, on the end of one is our chords. But give me the little staccato hit, one end. Okay? After that, we're going to add the middle finger to the fourth fret of string 3. And we're going to play that one twice, and then play string 2 twice. So keep that bar intact. So after you pluck, you're just going to push it back down. Okay, so we have O, pluck 4, 4, 3, 3. After this, we're going to play 5 on string 2. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's literally that simple. So we have O, pluck 4, 4, 3, 3, 5, 5. Let's try that bar by itself. 3, 4. Now from here, we're going to take the ring, we're going to move it up to the 8th fret, and we're going to play just that note, and then we're going to form the higher voicing C. And that higher voicing C, as we talked about, is the same shape as the G. So you have 7, 8, 7. So again, when we play the chord, we're just going to pluck the bottom 2 strings, and we're just going to give it with that staccato feel. So you're going to play string 2 by itself, and then pluck with the staccato feel the chord. Now at this point, what's a little bit difficult is that we have to use the pinky finger to play 9 on string 3. So check it out. I have 1 and 2 and. So I have string 2, pluck, then use the pinky to play 9 on string 3, and then lift that up, use the index to play 7 on string 3, and then move down with that index finger to 4. And actually, this one's going to be different, because we're going to go back up and play 7 again. So check it out. I have string 2, pluck, 9, 9, 7, 7, 4, 7. Okay? So a bit of a finger frenzy. This is probably the hardest one that we've done thus far. So we have string 2, pluck the higher voice, use the pinky to play 9 on string 3 twice, 7 on string 3 twice, down to 4 with the index, and then back to 7 with the pinky. Okay, so you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Alright, so let's practice that one really slow. So we have 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Nice, and if we try it again, we have 3 and 4 and. And if we tie it together, so we try the 5th into the 6th bar, we have 3 and 4 and. Nice, and let's try one more time. 3 and 4 and. Okay, so that may be one that you want to practice. And again, you can take it from beat 4 for bar 5 and just practice that transition. Right, get comfortable with that transition going from the end of the first into the second bar, and then try both of those together. So a bit of a finger frenzy, But now that we have it down, the good news is that the next two bars, 7 and 8, is identical for the most part to the first two bars that we played. So we have when we get to beat 4 for bar 8, it's going to go a little walk down. It's going to go 4 on string 4 to 3 on string 4. So you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So that's the only difference, is that we're going to go 4, 3. That gives us a nice little walk down sound to get the 5 and the 4 chord turnaround. So let's try that. Let's try bar 7 and 8, and we'll do the little walk down at the end. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, now let's do this. Let's backtrack and let's try 1 through 8 to give us a context of everything we've done thus far. So here we go. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, so that walk down sounds cool because it takes us into the little turnaround. So let's talk about that. So now we're on the 9th bar out of this 12 bar phrase, and that's our D7 chord. So sounds and looks like this. Okay, so again, we have that same fingering that we talked about in the beginner level. So we have first, second, and third, which eventually at some point is going to play 2, 2, 2. So start with this one. We just want to start with the D7 though. So we're not going to start with 2, 2, 2. We're going to start with 2, 2, 3. So you know that stock D7 chord. It's like the first bar chord most of us learn. That's the shape we're playing out of. We're just ignoring string 4 and we're not barring it. So we have first, second, third. So make that shape. And here's what I want you guys to do. You're going to hit string 3, then pluck, and then string 2, lift the ring finger up, play the open A, and then use the ring finger to play second, third. So you have 3, pluck, 2, 2, oh, oh, 2, 3. So let's try that one together. 3 and 4 and... Now for this one, I think it's okay if you let the chord sustain, right? Because it's kind of very difficult to give it that staccato sound and keep the music playing with the right hand. I wouldn't worry too much about that for this one as well as the next one. Right, so you can let those two sustain, and it gives it a little bit of a variation over what we heard through the first 8 bars. So a nice little contrast in the chord attack. So again, let's try just that one by itself. 3 and 4 and... Okay, going to the C7, it's going to be out of that same shape that we did for the beginner. So we're going to start with the open C, then pluck, open E, and the first fret of string 1. So it's basic C7 for this shape. Then take the ring, 4 on string 3, 2 times, middle, 3 on string 2, 2 times, lift the first finger up, play the open A, put it back down, play the first fret. So you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So let's try that one together. 3, 4. Nice. If we backtrack, D into C. 3, 4. Cool. And to finally finish up, 11 and 12 takes us back to the G chord. But the 12th bar, different ending. Another little cheesy cliche ending that I oh so love. So the first part starts the same. You have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... That's the exact same as bar 1. So if we look at the last measure, ba, da, da, that's the only thing new that we have to learn. So it's going to be first, second, third, but this time around we have the rhythm of 1 and pause on beat 2, pluck on the end of 2, and sustain to the end of the measure. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So let's try that one together. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and 11 and 12 together. 3, 4. Okay, so if we backtrack, let's try the turnaround to the end of the tune. So D to C to G. Here we go. 3, 4. Okay, and when you get the tune down and we put it all together, it's going to sound a little bit like this. So a really cute, fun-sounding, bluesy tune that has such an ever cool walking bass line mixed with the chords and really starts to take us into that chord melody, one-man band territory. So super fun stuff to play. So that's going to wrap us up for this part 1 lesson, guys. And in the part 2 lesson, we're going to be jumping into the jazz blues walking bass. It's so cool. I'm cracking up because it sounds so awesome. So that's going to be what we're going to be covering in the part 2 lesson. So all this fun, jazzy stuff thrown into the typical blues, and you can hear how much more it just transcends the awesomeness of blues and just makes it's like putting spice on food, you know? Food is awesome, then you put a little bit of spice and you get these different flavors, and that's exactly what jazz blues does. It jazzes up the blues. So that's what we're going to be learning in the part 2 lesson. So if you want to watch the part 2 lesson, you can click this link right here, or go to the site and do a search for EP012. That's the lesson number for this lesson. Don't forget to, on that page are the tabs that you can print off and keep for your records as a PDF format, as well as the on-screen tab viewer, which is that interactive tab player. So you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that, for lack of better words, jazz. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you in the part 2 one. Take care.